Have you ever laughed something off, even when it didn't feel right? Because that's exactly what I did. And if I had just trusted that feeling for even a second, things might have gone very differently. It started at my cousin's wedding. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. Everything looked perfect on the outside, string lights hanging across a wide backyard, soft music playing, people dressed like they belonged in a magazine. The kind of night everyone posts about, the kind of night you're supposed to remember for the right reasons. But I remember it for one sound, a chair scraping backward. My name is Lily Carter, I'm 16, and I was already a little out of place before anything even happened. Not because anyone said it outright, but you can feel it, you know? When everyone else is louder, older, more confident. My cousins were all grouped together, laughing too hard, talking too fast. And then there was me, kind of orbiting the edge of everything, especially around Dylan. He's 19, my aunt's son, the one everyone calls funny. But here's the thing about Dylan. His jokes always have a target, and somehow, that night, it kept being me. It started small. Little comments, nothing big enough to call out. Wow, Lily actually showed up. Careful, she might faint from all this excitement. People laughed. I smiled. Because what else are you supposed to do? The reception moved fast. Music got louder, people loosened up, glasses clinked, conversations overlapped. And for a moment, I thought maybe I could just blend in. And I grabbed a drink, walked back toward the table, took a breath. Then I went to sit down. And that's when everything changed. It happened in less than a second, but somehow it also felt slow. I turned slightly, lining myself up with the chair behind me. I didn't even look. Why would I? It was right there. Except it wasn't. The second I started to sit, the chair was gone. Just gone. Pulled backward. Fast. Deliberate. There's this split-second moment when your brain doesn't catch up with your body, where you're still expecting support that isn't there. And then, nothing. I dropped. Hard. My back hit first, but it didn't stop there. My head snapped backward and slammed against the edge of the table behind me. A sharp crack. Not loud enough to stop the music, but loud enough that I heard it. For a second, everything went quiet. Not around me. Inside my head. Then it rushed back all at once. Sound. Light. Movement. And laughter. Actual laughter. I blinked up at the ceiling lights, my vision slightly off. Like everything had shifted just a little out of place. Wine had spilled across the table above me. Someone gasped, but it didn't sound concerned. More like surprised, amused. And then I heard Dylan, right above me, laughing harder than anyone. Relax, it's just a joke. Just a joke. I forced a smile, because everyone was watching, because no one else seemed alarmed, because somehow, in that moment, it felt like I would be the problem if I made it one. So I stood up. Too quickly. The world tilted, just slightly, but I steadied myself before anyone could notice. I'm fine, I said. And even though something didn't feel right. And here's the part that stayed with me. Not the fall, not the laughter. It was the split second right after my head hit the table, when everything went silent. Because at the time, I brushed it off. But later, I couldn't stop thinking about it. And the next morning, that's when things started to get worse. Let me ask you something. If everyone around you is laughing, does that mean you're okay? Or does it just mean no one's paying attention? Because that's what it felt like I had just fallen harder than I ever had in my life. Hit my head, heard that awful crack, and somehow the moment was already over. Wrapped up, labeled, dismissed. I stayed at the wedding. That's the part that still doesn't make sense to me. I didn't go home. I didn't sit out. I didn't even tell my mom how hard I hit my head. I just stayed, smiling when people looked at me, laughing a little when Dylan kept joking about it. Did you guys see that? She didn't even check if the chair was there. More laughter, more attention, for him. And every time someone asked, I gave the same answer. I'm fine, even when I wasn't sure if that was true, because underneath everything, the embarrassment, the noise, the lights, there was something else. Something quieter. Off. It started as a faint ringing in my ears, like a distant hum that wouldn't fully go away. Then a dull pressure in my head. Not sharp, not unbearable, Just there, waiting. At one point, I remember standing near the edge of the yard, watching everyone dance. And for a second, I swear, everything blurred. Not dramatically, not like in a movie. Just enough that I had to blink a few times to bring things back into focus. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't want to make it a bigger deal. Because in my head, it wasn't. It couldn't be. Right? The night dragged on. Music, speeches, more laughter. Dylan eventually moved on to someone else. Another joke, another moment, another target. And just like that, I disappeared from the center of attention again. Which should have felt like relief, but it didn't. Because now it was just me. And the feeling I couldn't explain. By the time we got home, I was exhausted. Not the normal kind. The kind where your body feels heavy, like it's trying to shut everything down at once. I went straight to my room, didn't even scroll on my phone like I usually do. Just sat on my bed for a second, staring at nothing, trying to replay the fall. And that's when something strange hit me. The memory didn't feel clear. I could remember walking toward the chair. I could remember Dylan's laugh. I could remember being on the floor. But the exact moment in between? Blurry, like a gap. I shook it off. Whatever, I muttered to myself. It's just because it happened fast. That made sense. It had to. I changed, turned off the lights, and laid down. And for a few minutes, everything was quiet. Still. Then the headache hit. Not instantly, not violently, just slowly building behind my eyes, like pressure tightening. I shifted on my pillow, closed my eyes tighter, tried to ignore it. But then came the nausea. That's when I sat up, heart beating just a little faster now, not panicking, not yet, just noticing. Okay, I whispered to myself. That's new. I grabbed my phone, texted my best friend. Wedding was weird, LOL, she replied almost immediately. What happened? I stared at the screen, thumb hovering over the keyboard, and then I typed, nothing, just tired. Because even then, I didn't think it was serious. I laid back down again, head still pounding softly, room slightly spinning if I moved too fast. And somehow, I still convinced myself it would be gone by morning. But when I woke up, it wasn't gone. It was worse. And that's when everything started to change. Let me take you back a few hours before I hit the floor, because this didn't come out of nowhere. Not really. Dylan had been building up to it all day. That's the thing no one talks about. It wasn't just one moment. It was a pattern. From the second we arrived at the wedding, he was already in that mood. Loud, restless, performing. The kind of energy that pulls attention toward it whether you like it or not, and somehow, it kept circling back to me. Hey, Lily, he called out at one point, loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. You gonna talk tonight or just observe like usual? A few people laughed. Not cruelly, but not kindly either. I shrugged it off. Maybe, I said, forcing a small smile. That's how it always went. He'd push just enough, and I'd step back just enough. No confrontation, no escalation. Just imbalance. My Aunt Marissa noticed, of course, but not in the way you'd expect. Oh, Dylan, she said, waving her hand dismissively. Leave her alone. But she was smiling when she said it, like it was part of the entertainment. Like he was the show. And that told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't new. It wasn't going to stop. And no one was going to step in. So I adapted. Stayed quiet, stayed out of the center, kept things easy. But here's the part that still bothers me. Right before the fall, there was a moment, a small one, easy to miss. I was walking back to the table with my drink and I saw Dylan standing behind my chair. Just standing there, one hand resting on the back of it, watching me. And when our eyes met, he smiled. Not a big, obvious grin, something smaller, quieter. Like he already knew what was about to happen. I didn't think anything of it. Not really. Because why would I? It's a chair, a normal, harmless, everyday thing. Until it isn't. The moment played out exactly how he wanted. Perfect timing. Perfect reaction. But when I fell, it wasn't random. It wasn't clumsy. It was controlled. And the way he laughed, that wasn't surprise. That was satisfaction. That's the part that stuck with me later, because in the moment, I didn't process any of that. I just reacted, smiled, stood up, said I was fine. But there was one person who didn't laugh. I almost forgot about her. An older woman, maybe late 50s, sitting at the edge of the table. I didn't even know her name, but I remember her face. While everyone else was laughing, she wasn't. Her expression tightened, eyes focused, not on Dylan, on me. Are you all right? She asked, her voice cutting through the noise just enough. And for a split second, I almost told the truth. I almost said, no, I hit my head really hard. But then I heard Dylan again. Guys, she's fine. Look. And she's already up. And just like that, the moment passed. I'm okay, I said quickly, too quickly. The woman didn't look convinced, but she nodded anyway. Because what else could she do? And that was it. No one checked again. No one asked twice. No one noticed when I swayed just slightly as I stepped away. Except maybe her. Because as I walked off, I felt it again. That strange, quiet shift in my head. Like something wasn't lining up properly. And this time, it lasted a little longer. I remember blinking, trying to steady myself, trying to act normal, and thinking, why does everything feel just a little off? But I didn't stop. I didn't sit down. I didn't tell anyone. Because at that point, the story had already been decided. It was just a joke, right? But what I didn't know yet was that the fall wasn't the real problem. It was what happened inside my head the moment I hit that table. Have you ever woken up and immediately knew something wasn't right? Not just tired, not just sore. Something deeper. That's how it felt the second I opened my eyes. The light hurt first. Not in a dramatic way, just sharper than it should have been, like someone had turned the brightness up too high overnight. I squinted, pulling the blanket slightly over my face, tried to go back to sleep. But then the headache hit, stronger than before, heavier, like pressure building from the inside. Okay, I whispered, sitting up slowly. That's not great. The room shifted, just slightly, but enough. I froze, waited, took a breath. It steadied, but not completely. That's when the nausea came back. Not overwhelming, but persistent. Like it was waiting in the background, ready to get worse if I moved too fast. I swung my legs off the bed carefully. Everything felt delayed. Like my body and my brain weren't fully synced, and for the first time, I didn't brush it off right away. Maybe I hit my head harder than I thought, I muttered. Downstairs, my mom was already in the kitchen. Coffee brewing, normal morning sounds, normal day. But the second she saw me, something in her expression changed. Lily, you okay? I hesitated, and that hesitation said more than anything else could have. I just have a headache, I said. And I feel a little weird. Her eyes narrowed slightly. What do you mean weird? I tried to explain, but the words didn't come out right. I don't know. Just like, off. That's when she set her coffee down, fully focused now. Did you hit your head last night? And there it was, the question I'd been avoiding. Yeah, I admitted, but it wasn't a big deal. I just fell. How hard? I'm fine, I said quickly, too quickly, again. She didn't buy it this time. Get your shoes, she said. We're going to urgent care. I don't need. Lily. Her tone changed. Firm, not angry, but not optional. So I didn't argue. The car ride was quiet. I stared out the window, trying not to focus on how every bump in the road made my head throb just a little more. You should have told me, my mom said after a while. I thought I was okay. That's not something you guess about. I didn't respond, because now I wasn't so sure anymore. Urgent care was calm. Too calm. Bright lights, neutral walls, people sitting around like nothing urgent was happening at all. I checked in, sat down, waited, and the longer I sat there, the more aware I became of how I felt. The headache wasn't fading, it was settling in. A nurse eventually called my name, ran through basic questions. Any dizziness? Yes. Any nausea? Yeah. Any memory loss? That one made me pause. I don't think so, I said slowly, then added, Maybe just a little blurry about the moment I fell. She nodded, wrote something down. Then the doctor came in. He asked more detailed questions, focused ones. Did you lose consciousness? I don't think so. Did you feel disoriented after? Yeah. He studied me for a moment, then leaned back slightly. I think we should do a CT scan, he said. Yeah, my stomach dropped a little. Is that necessary? My mom asked. It's precautionary, he replied. But given the symptoms, I'd rather be sure. Precautionary. That word should have been reassuring. But it wasn't, because something in his tone didn't match it. Time slowed again. The scan itself was quick, quiet, mechanical, and then we waited, sitting in that room again. Only this time, it didn't feel calm anymore. It felt like something was coming. The door opened. The doctor walked back in, but he didn't speak right away. He just looked at me, then at my mom. And something in his expression shifted. Not panic, not yet. But enough to make my chest tighten. He turned slightly, reached for the phone on the wall, and said quietly, Yeah, I need this called in. Now. The second he reached for that phone, everything shifted. Not slowly, not subtly, instantly. The calm, gone. Up until that moment, it had all felt routine, precautionary, controlled, safe. But now? Now there was tension in the air, the kind you don't need explained. You just feel it. Mom? I said quietly. She didn't answer right away. Her eyes were locked on the doctor, watching him in a way I'd never seen before. What does that mean? She asked, her voice tighter now. The doctor turned back toward us, forcing a measured expression. Professional, careful. Lily, he said, stepping closer. I'm going to need you to stay very still for a moment, okay? That didn't answer anything. What's going on? My mom pressed. He hesitated, just for a second. But it was enough. Ma, we're arranging for immediate transfer, he said. There's something on the scan we need to address quickly. Something. That word hit harder than anything else. What kind of something? My mom asked. He exhaled slightly, not frustrated, just choosing his words. There appears to be a small bleed, he said, in the brain. Silence. Not the quiet from before. This one was heavier. My ears rang again, but this time it wasn't from the fall. A bleed, my mom repeated, her voice barely above a whisper. It's not massive, the doctor clarified quickly, but it's in a location where pressure can build. That's why we need to act fast. Pressure, act fast. The words didn't fully land. Not yet. I just stared at him, trying to connect this to last night, to a chair, to a joke. That doesn't make sense, I said. I just fell. He nodded. I understand, but head injuries can be unpredictable. Sometimes symptoms are delayed. That's what we're seeing here. Delayed. That explained the morning, the headache, the nausea, but it didn't explain how serious this suddenly was. Behind him, things started moving. A nurse entered, then another. Equipment. Voices lower now, but faster. What happens now? My mom asked. An ambulance is on the way, the doctor said. We're transferring her to a hospital with neurosurgical capability. Neurosurgical. That word hit differently. Is she going to be okay? My mom asked. Another pause. Short. Controlled. We caught it early, he said. That's important. Not a yes. That's when it finally started to feel real. My chest tightened. My hands felt cold. I don't understand, I said. My voice smaller now. It didn't feel that bad. The doctor looked at me, really looked this time. Sometimes, he said carefully, it's not about how it felt in the moment. And then, can you walk me through exactly how you hit your head? I swallowed. I fell backward, I said slowly. My head hit the edge of a table. How hard? I don't know. But then something clicked. The memory, that missing piece. It wasn't just a fall, I added, my voice tightening. My cousin, he pulled the chair out from under me. The room shifted again. Not physically, but the energy. The doctor's expression changed, just slightly, more focused. Pulled it? He repeated. Yeah, my mom said quickly, stepping in now. He's always doing things like that, pranks, but she hit her head hard. The doctor nodded slowly. Might that kind of sudden impact, he said, especially if you weren't bracing for it, can increase the force significantly. Increased force. So it wasn't just bad luck, it was how it happened. And suddenly, last night didn't feel like a joke anymore. It felt like something else entirely, something with consequences. The sound of distant sirens started to build. Closer. Real. And as the nurse adjusted something beside me, I realized this wasn't over. Not even close. The sirens got louder, closer, then they stopped. Right outside. Everything after that moved fast, but not in a blur. I remember it clearly, because this time, I wasn't brushing anything off. The paramedics came in with controlled urgency. Not rushed, not chaotic, but focused in a way that made it impossible to pretend this was minor. They asked questions. You repeated the same ones the doctor had asked. Checked my eyes, my responses, my awareness. Stay with us, Lily, one of them said calmly. Stay with us. That phrase stuck, because now, for the first time, there was a real possibility that something could go wrong. They moved me onto a stretcher, strapped me in, carefully. My mom stayed right beside me, her hand gripping mine tighter than usual. Not panicked, but close. I'm right here, she kept saying. The ride to the hospital felt longer than it probably was. Every bump in the road echoed through my head. Not sharp, but deep. Like pressure shifting inside. I stared at the ceiling of the ambulance, listening, thinking. And one thought kept repeating. This started with a chair. At the hospital, everything escalated again, but in a more controlled way. A team was already waiting. They had my scan. They knew what they were looking for. More imaging, more monitoring, more questions. And then finally, answers? A specialist explained it clearly. No vague wording this time, no softening. You have what's called a subdural hematoma, he said. It's a small bleed between the brain and its outer covering. I nodded slowly, trying to process. It's not large enough to require surgery right now, he continued, but it is in a location where pressure can build. That's why we moved quickly. So, what happens? My mom asked. We monitor closely, he said. If it expands, we intervene. If it stabilizes, the body can reabsorb the blood over time. And if we didn't catch it? She asked. He didn't hesitate. It could have worsened, he said. No, significantly. That was the moment everything clicked into place. The headache, the nausea, the strange silence in my head right after I hit the table. It wasn't nothing. It was the beginning. And if we had ignored it, if I had just stayed quiet, this story could have gone very differently. That realization hit harder than the fall itself. I wasn't embarrassed anymore. I wasn't replaying the laughter. I was thinking about how close it came. Lying there in that hospital bed, I felt something shift inside me. Not fear exactly, not anger either. Clarity. What happened to me wasn't harmless, it wasn't funny. It wasn't something to brush off to keep the peace. And for the first time, I let myself feel that fully. My mom sat beside me, quieter now. I should have stopped it, she said at one point. At the wedding. I saw it. I just didn't think. You didn't know, I said. But we both understood something had changed. Not just for me, for both of us. News spread through the family fast. Faster than anything else ever had. The same people who laughed? Now they were asking questions, calling, checking in. But the tone had changed, completely. Dylan's name came up in every conversation. At first, it was confusion. Wait, what exactly happened? Then it shifted. That wasn't okay. My Aunt Marissa didn't take it well. It was just a joke, she insisted at first. No one could have known this would happen. But that didn't hold up for long, because this wasn't just about what could have happened. It was about what did happen. A doctor had called emergency services because of something her son did. And that's not something people ignore. Dylan tried to reach out, texted me, called. I didn't mean for it to go that far. That was the message. But there wasn't really a response to that. Because intent didn't change the outcome. Family dynamics shifted. Some people distanced themselves from him, others confronted him directly. There were even conversations, serious ones, about responsibility, about whether what happened crossed a legal line. Nothing immediate was filed, but the possibility was there. And everyone knew it. For the first time in his life. Dylan wasn't being laughed with. He was being looked at differently. Recovery wasn't instant. I had to rest, limit screen time, avoid anything that could worsen the pressure. Follow-up scans, appointments, monitoring, but gradually, things improved. The headaches faded, the dizziness disappeared, the fog lifted, and with it, something else cleared too. I stopped minimizing things, stopped laughing things off just because everyone else did, because I understood now how quickly something small can turn into something serious. A few weeks later, I was sitting at home, at the kitchen table, carefully, deliberately. That detail didn't escape me. My phone buzzed. A message? Dylan. I looked at the screen, read it, didn't open it. Then I set the phone down. Not out of anger, not even out of resentment, just decision. Some things don't go back to normal, and they're not supposed to. I leaned back slightly in my chair, stable, grounded, aware. And for the first time since the wedding, I felt completely in control again. Because now I knew the truth. They laughed when I hit the floor, but nothing about what happened next was a joke.